Hello people, I'm back again with another beginner video. This one is going to be just a brief video with a few tips about how to put together a single player card setup. In the last beginner video I talked a little bit about what kinds of cards you should be looking to get in the early part of the single player game. Really all of the single player campaign, to be honest. And remember, this video series and my videos are all about how to play this game and have some fun, complete content as a free-to-play player. Someone who isn't spending real cash to get supreme cards. So, continuing with that theme, I just have a few brief pieces of advice for putting together a deck. I was messing around there, so that one doesn't count. Basically, you have a total of 5 cards in single player that you can use. You have your 4 in your deck that adds up to give your deck level, and then you have the borrowed card, the card you can borrow from another player before you enter a play area on one of the maps. Ideally, what you're looking for is you want an attack card, usually probably a single target, could be multiple target, but at least a single target damage attack, okay, that is going to do good against the red health gauge. And you can see that this one is sort of a balanced card, actually. But you do want to get something that has a high attack level, and this is where those Sicarus cards I talked about come in. So you want one of those. Ideally, you want one card of some sort of break-related damage or debuff. So this card, for example, it has good break power, and it's only level 2. Good break power, and it lowers defense against break. Okay, so you got one that helps with the yellow and red bars, and then one that helps with the green bar, and then you have 2 spots left, one of which should always be a support card of some kind. And I explained, because I'm using the monk in my other video, why I'm using Hades, which isn't considered a good card, but for my purposes at 3-star, I won't upgrade it. It works perfectly well. Now I'm a little short on cards for this deck setup, so I have another one currently that is lowers defense against break and break damage. Ideally I want another attack of some kind here, if I can get it at some point. Or if not another attack, I could have another support card here. If I get Knights of the Round, for example, at some point it would go here. And it could also be, or a status effect card. Remember, I showed you some of those cards in the ability shop for 3 tickets that have a variety of status effects on them, like stun, a bio, so on and so forth. So I could have one of those here. The idea here, as you can tell, is I'm building a well-rounded deck. A support card, some sort of status effect or other sort, definitely a break card, definitely an attack card. Now, you have that 5th card that you can borrow. So if I really go with Knights of the Round, right, the other support card, then maybe I don't want to borrow a support card. Maybe I borrow, some other, maybe a supreme attack card of some kind, or a supreme debuff card if it's available. So you're kind of building, right, your deck, your total deck around that. And this is where that borrowed card is important. It's not just something you just pick. It's something to be effective. Sometimes it doesn't matter in single player, right? Sometimes those battles are pretty easy. Most of the time they are. But every once in a while you come across one that's a little bit more difficult, especially if it has 2 of these shadow class guys in a single combat. 2 of them can be somewhat tricky, and so you need this well-rounded deck. So that's how you set up the main. And I recommend following pretty much the same strategy for the sub-deck. You have the ability to switch between decks during fights to the sub-deck. I believe it should be Chapter 4, Part 1. when they begin to introduce the light and dark elements into the game, they give you the subdeck, which makes sense because that's a lot of elements to try to cover. In fact, you have 3 and 3, so that's 6 out of 8 elements. You can only ever cover 6 out of 8, so there's always going to be a gap. But the idea, of course, is to pick a setup that will end up complementing your primary setup, both in terms of the elements that you're covering and maybe some of the abilities. So that's it. That's pretty straightforward for single player. I mean, single player is about getting as many different kinds of abilities, get effective damage. Some of those stuns and other things are useful in single player in order to try to manage some of the crowds. Maybe you want to eventually, you want maybe a single target attack as well as an area attack in order to manage some of those groups. I'll do a separate video on setting up decks for multiplayer, and I'll do a different video for every class or every job role, I guess I should say. And that's very different. If you go into multiplayer with a well-rounded deck, they're just going to cancel the fights on you, especially at 3 and 4 star, because quite frankly, to do the 3 and 4 star boss fights in multiplayer, you have to have abilities that match your role for multiplayer, and we'll talk about that in other videos. But for single player, this is what you want to do. You want to have a well-rounded, flexible setup of cards, and I think some of the advice I gave you on decks compared with this will serve you fine to get through the game up through, I think I'm up through into chapter 5 at this point, so it's not been bad. The only fights that were a little bit tricky were the ones where I had to fight 2 of these guys at once. That's a lot of damage they throw at you. The other thing is that once you get to one of your jobs to 8 stars, it will open up this custom skills panel, and you get these items from the skill draw here. You can see I got a lot there, so what I did was basically I just drew a couple batches of 6 of the 1-star basic cards. I just wanted a little extra in there for the main character for attack to help me fight these group shadow guys. That's not until 8 star. Now it costs skill seeds, right up here. Some of these skill seeds to place these. For the 1-star, it's really cheap, but the higher you go in quality, the more it costs. And I don't really want to spend skill seeds on much of that, and so for now I've just left it. When I will start to spend that kind of stuff would be when I get a new job card. And this is a comment. I'm going to do a video tomorrow. Tomorrow is the special welcome back campaign that Square Enix put on for trying to get players back into the game, and there is a greater summon that's free, and so I'm going to be using that. And so part of my strategy here is built around my game right now in terms of controlling or preventing the use of these summon cards is built around that event, because I know that I'm going to get a 5-star card fully upgraded for free, and I know I'm going to get one job card that's fully updated. And so my strategy is I'll start to spend some of my resources and skill seeds and things on that job card that I get, because the specific focused job cards are way better than the onion job cards. I'm going to build my multiplayer role around that. I'm going to build my single player main character around that as well. So it may end up being, whatever it is. That's kind of what I'm going to be stuck with. I don't want to spend summoning cards on the job card summon at this point. I want to save those for later on, those cards. So that's my strategy. That's sort of the larger idea here behind this new character and my strategy. And so that's a little bit of the larger picture. That's a little bit of the plan that I have in terms of for putting together a deck. Okay, that's it for this video. Peace out till next time.